Alright guys, time to try on the new Ant-Man outfit. Well, here goes nothing. You know, I think it worked. Nice, Donnie. You know, I really didn't think this through.
Film Learnin and the masters of After Effects.
Hey guys, welcome to Film Learnin, the show dedicated to learning you some filmmaking and learning you good. Now I know I said we'd get back to flash effects this week, but I went and saw Ant-Man on the weekend, so I decided to answer this request. Dynamic asked, if you have any time, I'd love to see an Ant-Man shrinking effect. That'd be great! Well, as it happens, I'm sick at the moment. You may be able to hear it in my voice, so I've got a little bit of time. Not to be sick, of course, but who got time for that? Right, Sweet Brown?
Ain't nobody got time for that!
That's right. So in order to complete this effect, you need to shoot your actor on a green screen performing the shrinking action, whatever that may be. You'll also need some footage of them just hanging out, pretending to be small, making sure you get their full body in the shot. Whether you wear a suit or not is entirely up to you. I just felt like it, so get off my case, okay? Now we ain't done yet. One last thing we need is our background plate, where our actor will initially be standing, and then a close-up shot of where they end up once they're shrunk. If you have a macro lens, I would recommend shooting this close-up with that. If not, I'll show you how to fake it, and if you don't know what a macro lens is, well, you know those pictures of bugs really up close? Yeah, they do that. Righto, that's everything. Let's get to work. Hey guys, here we are in good old After Effects and ready to go. I've got two comps set up this time, one for shrinking and one for already shrunk. So let's get started on the first. As I mentioned, we've got our shot keyed out and all ready to go with my background plate. Now our first step is to head up and grab this tool here. It's called the pan behind or anchor point tool. What this allows us to do is to tell After Effects where the center of our layer is. This is important for shrinking, because wherever our anchor point is where our scaled down footage will end up. If I hit S and play around, you can see what happens. So since we want our Ant-Man to shrink down out of frame, we'll grab our anchor point and we'll place it down here, just out of frame. We'll then hit the stopwatch, head forward around 6 frames, and bring our scale down until our boy is out of frame. Let's then turn on motion blur for the comp and the layer and check out a preview. It looks okay on its own, but we want some of that sweet ghosting effect as he shrinks down, right? So let's duplicate our footage, turn off that bottom footage layer and our background layer, turn the motion blur off, head over to presets, type cartoon, and drop that on our footage. Time to change some settings. Now you may have to fiddle around with this just to get the same look. We'll change the render to edges, the detail threshold to 0, then in the edge settings, change the threshold to 1.86, the width to 1.8, collapse the advanced menu down, crank the edge level black to 9, the edge black level to 10, and the edge contrast to 0.6. We'll then head up to Effect, Stylize, and add a glow just for good measure. We now have a sweet outline of our Ant-Man shrinking. Now we have to render that out. So let's scrub to the point where our outline is no more on screen, hit N to temporarily trim the clip, we'll then hit Ctrl M to add it to our render queue, click on our lossless settings here, and we're going to select Photoshop and render this out as a Photoshop sequence. Hit render and then import those stills back in. Just make sure you don't import them as a Photoshop sequence. We need to work with each of these stills separately. Let's now turn that footage layer off that we made our outline with, because we don't need it anymore. Let's grab our first Photoshop still and drop it straight on our footage, and we'll change the transfer mode to screen. We'll then zoom in and scrub forward counting 4 frames. Next, hit Ctrl-Shift-D and delete that tail end. Let's then hit S to bring up scale, hit the stopwatch, head to the end of those 4 frames and crank it up 20%, so we now have 120%. We'll then head back to the start of the clip, hit T, hit the stopwatch on opacity, head to the end again, and crank that down to 0. As you can now see, our ghost grows and fades away. We'll then rinse and repeat this process for the rest of our stills, moving ahead exactly 1 frame each time. We move forward a frame, drop in our still, change the transfer mode to screen, trim to 4 frames, scale, and fade. Do this until you run out of stills. The end result should look like this. So now we've done that, let's make it even cooler. Select all of your stills, right click and select Pre-Compose. We'll name this outline and then change the transfer mode to screen. Let's then add a few cherries on top. First off, head to Effect, Distort, and add Turbulent Displace. We'll set the displacement to twist, the amount to 25, and the size to 10. We'll then hit the stopwatch on Evolution, head to the end of the comp, and crank it up to 2. We'll then head back up to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and add a directional blur. Change the angle to around -21 degrees or just the general direction your actor's shrinking, and then crank the blur amount up to around 12. Let's turn our footage layers and motion blur back on and check out a preview. Done! Now if I open up the opening sketch, you can see I've got one frame of white that flashes on screen before I shrink. This is something that actually happened in the movie to switch from a live action Ant-Man to a CG Ant-Man. So essentially I did the same thing, except in my case I switched from a studio shot live action footage to the green screen footage. That's right, I actually shot my footage in the studio and just matched my position on the green screen. But it's actually a lot easier just to shoot it all in one shot on the green screen. So that way, all you have to do to marry these two shots up is to add one frame of a white solid between them. Pretty easy, huh? Okay, we've shrunk ourselves down. Now let's finish this thing with the close-up. Now to make yourself tiny isn't hard at all. You just scale yourself down really small, and just for fun, we'll add a shadow quickly. Duplicate your keyed footage, make the bottom layer 3D. We'll then use the 3D rotation controls to make it look like it's a projecting shadow. It should look roughly like this. We'll then head over to presets and type drop shadow. Drop that in and click shadow only. You can then adjust the softness and opacity to best match your footage. The end result looks like this. To fake a macro looking shot, you simply do what I did. Zoom in as much as you can on an object at a shallow depth of field. If you do, use something as a reference to focus the camera. I used a small piece of foam. That way your camera will actually blur out everything else in the shot and just focus on that one thing. The other option is to shoot your footage and add a few adjustment layers and mask around parts of the frame to blur them out to fake the look. Just be careful with this method, as it can look a bit on the fake side if you overdo it. And also, having a big ass dog nose in your shot doesn't hurt either. Add up all those steps and you get something like this.
Alright guys, time to try on the new Ant-Man outfit. Well, here goes nothing. You know, I think it worked. Nice, Donnie. You know, I really didn't think this through.
So that's my take on Marvel's Ant-Man shrinking effect. It's pretty easy to do and requires no third-party plugins. So you know, it's cheap. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and share it. If you're new here, give the subscribe button a fist of fury. For previews of upcoming episodes, hit me up on Twitter and Facebook. And until next week when this might come into play, keep learning.